Today, my wife and I are visiting Colonial Williamsburg, an amazing living history museum in Virginia that tells the early part of America's enduring story. Come along with me and my wife as we explore a history buff's paradise. That's coming up next.
Good morning to you on this beautiful morning, and welcome to the Governor's Palace. I'm going to have the pleasure of sharing the first floor of the building with you. That's what we're able to show right now, and we'll conclude right behind the main building, and I'll mention a few things on the gardens that you're welcome to visit while you're here. So we'll take care of the first floor. You can complete the picture by walking around the grounds if you wish to, if your schedule permits today. Now, of course, the purpose of the palace was to house the governors of Virginia, and that's exactly what he did. The oldest, largest, wealthiest, most populous of those 13 British colonies, and our governors will sit here by England's king or queen. In case of our first governor, Alexander Spotswood, sent here by Her Majesty Queen Anne. Look at the royal symbols out there reminding us of that. The lion and unicorn, symbols of England and Scotland. The crown there on top of the gate, the most, I think, recognizable symbol of royalty, royal authority. And another crown up there on top of the cupola, on top of the weather vane. Royal symbols abound. In fact, when we get inside, we're going to be surrounded by them. So look for that, reminding us of our place in the British Empire, where we are, home of the King's representative. The last of the royal representatives who governed Virginia was John Murray, 4th Earl of Dunmore, who left here in June of 1775, not long after the Revolutionary War began, never to return to Williamsburg. 13 months later, after Dunmore's departure, we're independent. In Great Britain, of course, that Declaration of Independence, July of 1776. That very same week of our independence, the Commonwealth of Virginia, as she calls herself, inaugurated her very first elected governor. And he'll move into the House, Mr. Patrick Henry. And then 3 years later, he'll be followed by Mr. Thomas Jefferson, second governor of the Commonwealth. But at that point, the decision had been made by the government of Virginia to move the state capital west to Richmond, where it still is today. So after April of 1780, that was it. It's no longer the governor's home. The city was no longer the capital of Virginia. Well, what became of the palace after that? Well, the following year was a watershed year for our American Revolution. It ended, the last major siege, 1781, Yorktown, in October of that year. In fact, prior to the siege, General George Washington made his headquarters here in Williamsburg, just down the street. You can visit the George Wythe House. So this is a hospital for the Continental Army before, during, and after Yorktown. But sadly, before that year was out, in fact, December of 1781, a fire swept through the building and destroyed it. So this is not among our 88 original buildings that you find in the historic area, but it's one of the first to be rebuilt. In fact, this very month of April marks 87 years that this reconstructed palace was completed and opened. Now, thanks to archaeology, of course, which preceded the reconstruction of the building, they were able to find marble and tile from the original site. It must have been quite exciting, to say the least, finding a whole tile in the original site. They also discovered documents in different libraries and other places that showed what the building looked like. So this building looks like the original. So if Lord Dunmore came strolling through that gate right now to join us, he'd recognize this building. It's reconstructed site as the palace. So come and join me. We also have original documents telling us what kind of furnishings were there, so we have the same atmosphere. And we'll take a look at the first floor. Just make sure your cell phones are silent as courtesy to everyone else. Feel free to take photographs and ask questions if you have them. We just ask that masks stay covering your noses, please, fully. Inside and in the gardens, too. So come and join me in the entry hall. provide a show of how the authority operated this hall. Indeed, quite an impressive room. First of all, the marble floors. Imagine how impressive, say, 1720, 3 centuries ago, this is going to be, finding marble floors, or seeing all these weapons. Nothing really unusual in the 18th century. This is what you'll find in English palaces, by the way. These royal governors copied that and installed it here in the palace in Williamsburg. So they're symbols, plain and simple, showing British power, the power of the king, and therefore the power of the governor of Virginia. So it's all symbolism. Same for the coat of arms. That's where I get my power. The governor's saying, you're his subjects, you're under his protection. Remind us where we are, the home of the kings represented here in Virginia. As far as the number of weapons here today, there are 540. Some are antiques, including some of the display of the fireplace that you see there. And it is such a commanding view or picture because this might be as far as you got in the house. You were greeted by liveried footmen there. And in a few moments, you'll see a copy of the livery that Dunmore servants wore. Over there on the butler's pantry. They admitted you. There's sort of a screening process you'll go to. They'll send you to the proper spot that will best be suited to help you. If you are, of course, maybe another royal governor, or you are a political figure, yeah, you'll be going beyond this part. Maybe having dinner with His Excellency, the governor, over in the dining room. Maybe going up to the private quarters upstairs to the governor's library. Or maybe you're for a ball, dance in the ballroom, which will be seen a little later. And if you have something vital or simple, no. You will need to see the governor, very likely. So you'll be invited over to the parlor, or Captain Ford, or Dunmore secretary to assist you. But how do you go up there to the parlor? See how easily you can be assisted? It looks like Captain Ford could easily come in and help somebody with their receipt right now. But of course, the tea wanted to be served to a guest. That could happen in there. Or games or meals. Style of London, which, in Virginia was considered the most English of the colonies, they're going to be quite, I'd say, interested to see what's in fashion in London, what type of paper might be hanging in Buckingham House, of course, the king's residence. And they were influenced by classical Romans from Italy. That's why you get that style here, this influence. We know both ballroom and supperroom were carpeted. Blue wallpaper was put in with gilt paper mache border. Heaters that look like these were put in that burn coal. 2 of them. The second one we'll see in the supper room. Royal portraits, you probably already recognize it. Yeah, there's your king, George III. There's the queen. Think about the visual symbolism of that. They're 3,000 miles away, but you know why you're here. Celebrating his ascending to the throne, or her birthday. You're his fellow subjects. Again, the whole idea of that symbolism in the hall. Must have been gorgeous with several dozen guests here, all getting ready to minuet. Musicians seated over there, their harpsichord, their instruments tuned. The first dance of the night is a minuet, and that's when you are on show, if you will. For 5 to 7 minutes, each couple in descending social rank will step a minuet in front of the rest of the company. Sounds a little daunting, doesn't it? But maybe not as much when the fact is known that Virginians took dance lessons. It's part of their education, a rite of passage to take dance. Their greatest social activity, and they enjoyed it. One Virginian wrote They would dance. I wrote about Virginians. They would dance or die. So they took it seriously. Yes, George Washington was a pretty graceful dancer. You know, he did dance here on one occasion. But once the minuets were done, the country dances followed, and everyone's out here at the same time. That's why the room is long like this, 47 feet. So the Scottish reels are stepped, Irish jigs, French cotillions. Must have been a lot of fun. Pretty lively dances though. So after a few hours of this, everyone's going to be a little thirsty and hungry. You might have made a little trip back to the dining room, maybe have a sip of wine or some conversation, or maybe to the parlor. Games could be set up, a game of cards. But at some point in the evening, I'm sure the guests are looking forward to the collation. And that is served in the supper room. It's late at that point. Remember, we don't start till dusk, so I bet it's getting close to midnight by now, maybe a little earlier. And the tables are being loaded, we feel, with dozens of dishes, maybe desserts would be the main things you'll find on the table. Gelatins, pound cakes, for example, cookies, dried fruits, and nuts. So this must have been just gorgeous and fun to indulge in all of that. Of course, some spirits and some meat dishes. You're going to be filled with sugar, it sounds like, doesn't it? Energy. Well, I think that was probably on purpose because you're going to head right back here and dance some more. So I think these balls could go past midnight. It certainly sounds like it, doesn't it? Of course, the days of the British governors ended in 1775. You recall Lord Dunmore leaving here. But decades, this had been the home of the King's representative. And this has been illustrated, I think, very, very well with all the furnishings, with the lavish carpeting, with all those weapons and coats of arms. We now are in the home of the King's representative, and truly a building fit for the royal governor. This is just the house physically. It was a pretty grand house, 3 stories, brick, about 11,000 square feet. But the gardens, too, complemented it. It truly was a property fit for the royal governor. So we're going to step outside the supper room. We'll conclude there. Originally about 300 acres, we believe, including farmlands extending out in that direction. We know there was a canal. They found evidence of that archaeologically, so that's being restored in that direction. In the back, we've added a hedge maze where you see the mulch area, and then go left. You'll come to the hedge maze, popular in royal residences. We see more and more royal coat of arms up there, again reminding us where we are, who we are, the king's subjects here in Virginia. You'll find that again. I don't know if you've ever been to the Capitol building or the courthouse out there on Duke of Gloucester Street, but you'll see that again. And that, of course, will tell you, through all that we've seen here, the symbolism of royal authority and power, that touched that site too. So look for things like that as you visit the city today. The brick outbuildings have all been rebuilt too. That's where work was done, like the kitchen and laundry, for example. And in many cases, that's where the staff, which included paid servants and enslaved people, lived as well as performed the work that made this a property fit for the royal governor.
Well, that's a wrap for this Colonial Williamsburg video. I hope you really enjoyed it, getting to see another part of this amazing living history museum. If you like this sort of stuff, check out my other videos. Check out colonialwilliamsburg.org to plan your own visit here, because it's so much cooler in real life than it is on film. Till next time, this is History Buff, TN Photobug signing out, and I'm having a blast with the past.